Welcome to Mr. Holloway's Foundational Java Skills series. In this video, we're going to talk about the word static. But before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Class is now in session. Okay, so in the previous video, we talked about classes and methods, attributes, arguments, and that sort of thing. We're going to kind of do the same thing here, but I'm going to do a very simple example of this thing we call static. And so I'm going to do two examples. So the first one is I just want to talk about what static means. So in this case, we have a circle, and we can create a circle by doing circle, and let's call this C1, and we're going to set this to a new circle, right, because we're going to call the constructor, and I'm going to put a constructor here just for now. So let me do public circle, and I'm going to just print something out. So we'll say system.out.print, and I'll say circle created. Okay, so we have a simple constructor, and so every time we create a circle, now let's just say I wanted to let's do this. So I'll do system.out.println, and then we'll do c1.size. Does that look good? Let's see. All right, I knew something looked funny there. Okay, it's in here. All right, so that is fixed. Let me just bring this down and we'll run this again. And so we have a very simple circle class with just one attribute. We have every time a circle is created, we're going to print out this message, circle is created. And then we're going to access this size attribute. All right, now let's talk about static. So in order for us to access a static method, we couldn't do it like this. All right, so one of the simplest ones, I'm just going to, let's go ahead and comment that out. One of the first and simplest static methods that we learn about is something in the math class. So I'm going to say system.out.println, and I'm going to say math.random. So let me show you how this works. So random. So what happens here is that this is the name of the class, and this is the method, the random method. And so when we run this, it's going to give us just a random number. So that's what this does. There's several other types of methods in this class, but this is math.random. Now notice that I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to say math, and then I could call it, create a variable, and I could say is equal to a new math, right? And then I would do m1.random. Okay, I didn't have to do that because that's not the way that you access a static method. This we're actually creating a copy of an object in the math class. This is not going to work for a static method. All right, so this is kind of one of the first that you probably will see out there. It's very common. It's for using random or creating or having random numbers. And so if I run this again, I'm going to get a random number again. And this is what we call a static method. All right, so attributes can be attributes can be static as well as methods. All right, and when we ran that again, we got 0.38. All right, we got 0.74 here. So it just gives us a random number. All right, so let's come to this example here. All right, so let me explain what we're going to do. We're going to come back here. We're going to create a static variable or attribute, and we're going to create a static method. All right, so let me explain a little bit further visually how this is going to work. So let's come over here to our Google Slides, and let me explain how this works. So static attributes and methods belong to the class. So this is the class, and let's say we had two attributes, one is size and one is radius. Okay, this is an instance variable. It belongs to the instances. This radius is a static variable and it belongs to the class. So what does that mean? Well, let's just look at the circle. So this is the blueprint, right? This is the class. This is an instance. This is another instance, and this is one more instance. So we have three instances or three copies of the circle class. And this is how we create it. So we have a C1, a C2, and a C3. So these are all separate instances. And we set the size variable to different amounts. So this is 15, this is 7, and this is 25. But notice that the radius, which is static, it belongs to the class. It is the same all the way across. So if we were to change this to 20, it would change all across these, all of the instances, because it belongs to the class. Now, an instance variable belongs to this instance. So that's why this size can be 15, this one can be 7, and this one can be 25. Okay, but a static variable belongs to the class. All right, let's hop back into the code and let's demonstrate how this is going to look in code. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to say static. So we're going to define this as static, and we're going to say int, and we're going to do a radius, and I can set this value just to 10. We'll do this to 10. Okay, so we have a very simple class, two attributes, and a very simple constructor. So let's come over here and let's access these here. So the first thing I want to do is let's get rid of this one here, and I'm going to bring this back to life here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create 3 circles. So 3 copies. All right. And I'm going to make this 2. I'm going to make this 3. And then we're going to do, we're going to just print out the value of each one of these here. So we'll do a very simple statement. So we'll say system out print ln, and then we'll do the size, and we'll do c1 dot size. Okay, so that's going to be fine, but because the next one, to print the radius, we have to access this a little bit differently. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to do just a little just create a little space there, and then we'll do plus, we want to do circle dot radius. All right, now the reason why we have to call it like this is because it's static. So with a static attribute or static method, you call the class and then use the dot operator, and you access the attribute or the method. In this case, we're accessing the radius attribute. Okay, notice here we're actually talking about the size, the object. So this is the C1. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this. Okay, and so we'll do that. All right, so that's actually not going to do anything for us. So so we'll print the values. Let me just separate this. So we'll do print values, and then we have to do one other thing here. What we'll do is we'll set the values here. And again, this is generally not the way we want to do it, but I'm just demonstrating how we can access and use static attributes and methods. Okay, so we're going to set values. So in this case, I'm going to say c1.size is equal to 10, c2.size is equal to 20, and we'll say C3 dot size equal to 30. All right, so we set the value of the size in all of the instances, and so they're different values, and then we're going to print out the radius here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me get rid of that. All right. All right, so we get these values. Let me clean this up really quickly. So put some spacing here. So let me do, so this is going to be the radius. We'll do a plus here. And that. And that. And I'll just forget measure, just put the little colon here. Okay, so let's run this again, and we'll get the instance values of size, and then we get the circle dot radius, which is the value of the radius, which is a static attribute, and it belongs to the class. All right, so that's how we call a static attribute. Now I want to do one other thing here, so I'm just going to keep these here, and just to prove that we need to let me see. Okay, so just to prove that these are going to change, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the value. So C1, I'm sorry, let's do circle dot, we'll do radius, and we'll set that to 34. And now it's going to change here because it belongs to the class. So the value of the radius is going to change in each one of these. And there you go. So it's 34, 34. All right, so the point here is that the way you access a attribute of an instance is different than the way you would access it with a static attribute. So in this case, you have to call the name of the class, and then you access whatever you're trying to get to. And if we were to take, and let me just go ahead and clean this up. I'm just going to keep one here for now. If I were to take this and I made this a non-static variable attribute, notice it already doesn't like that. So what we have to do is we have to make this static, because we're going to get this error. So you can't call a static method in a non-static way. All right. So in this case, we'll bring this back to static, and it should work. Okay. If we wanted to access this, we'd have to, with an instance, the way we do it with an instance, we'd have to do it like this. Okay. And this obviously would have to be non-static. All right. Okay, let's create a static method. So the way we create a static method is we simply do public, let me see what I want to do. We'll do public static, and we're going to return something here. So I'm going to call this we'll just call it my method. And I'll just make that skeleton here. And what we'll do is we'll print out the value of the static variable radius. So we'll do .out.print ln. No, I'm sorry, can't do that. We'll do, we should need to return this. So we're going to do radius. So now we've just created a static method. The reason why it's static, because we're using the keyword static. And so if we want to access this, we have to actually access it the same way we did it before. So we can't use this instance variable, we have to do it like this. So what we'll do here is we'll just say, hey, I'm just going to say circle. We'll say circle dot my method, and close that off. And now notice we're not saying C1 dot method, so we're not saying C1 dot my method, right? We can't do it that way. That's not the standard way to do it. But let's see what happens. So we should get, let me get rid of this. So we'll just look at this. So right now we have the value of my method, which is going to return the radius, which is set to 10. So we should get 10 on this side. So let's see what happens. And there it is. We get 10. All right. So notice that with a static method, you call the name of the class, and then you call the method. So let's come back to the circle, and let's say size. So let's say we wanted to return size. Okay, everything should work because we have size. It's an int, but what do you think is going to happen? All right, we have a static method. We have a static method returning a non-static attribute. So let's run this and see what error we get. And there it is. Non-static variable cannot be referenced from a static context. So basically, whatever, if you have a static method, you need to use a static attribute. So I'm going to change this back to radius. And there it is. All right, so in this video, we talked about the word static, what it means, and we learned that static attributes, static methods belong to the class. They don't belong to the actual instance object. And so that's why we could do circle.radius here. This is static. So anytime you see a capital letter, generally, it's going to be a class. And whatever you're accessing is going to be an attribute or a method. This is an instance. C1.size, we created a C1 up here. So this is a copy of the circle class. And this is a very simple class that we did here. And then coming back to our graphic here, we learned that static attributes and methods belong to the class. We have the circle class. We have the size, which is a instance variable in the circle class. This is a static, and it belongs to the class. So whenever we make a change, it's going to change across all of these here because it belongs to the class and not the instance. Okay, so that concludes this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video where we're going to start inheritance.